Welcome to Zell. I'm music director here at Spinnaker Radio in Jacksonville, Florida, and what you just heard was a song by Never Ending Struggle, a local hip-hop group from Jacksonville. I actually have them in the booth right now. We're going to talk to them for a little bit here with Jay and Josh, and also one of our DJs, Austin. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
How's everybody, man? We're good. We're good.
Great.
Glad
Pleasure to have you here.
Yes, we're glad to be here.
Thank you.
So would you like to go elaborate more on what you guys were talking about as setting up the equipment, some of the themes and the concept of some of the songs that you've been recently writing?
Tell them about They Need Love.
They Need Love. We'll go right into that because we were just sharing a conversation and a theory of the misconception of divide and conquer. It was based on the black race, dark versus light, but you can also parlay that into the misconception of the have and have-nots. You divide the have-nots into two separate entities and you turn them against each other. So every race can relate to that, and it's just the haves. So the concept of They Need Love is based on women, and it's based on the concept of being darker skinned creates an inferiority complex, and we're mythbusters on that. I mean, it's just to damage the stereotypes.
Yeah, because my verse basically is by me in elementary school. Basically, I went on a field trip, and for some reason, light-skinned girl named Charlene, they used to pick on her. And as a child, you don't realize why. Like, why are you picking on Charlene? What she do to you? But then when you get older, you see, she got pretty hair, long curly hair, they light skin, fair skinned. She's viewed as pretty, and all the dark skinned girls are viewed as less than pretty. So they had a problem with her just because of her skin color, and not knowing she was cool. Like I said, as a child, you don't know these things. So that's me shedding light on that. Situation.
She was also mixed in the verse, I do believe, right?
Yeah, she was biracial.
That's something that also that's a whole nother stigma, a whole nother element that comes into it. Not only are you lighter skinned, but you have a white parent somewhere along the line. You have a parent that's not of us. So it's something that it's racial, and it's designed to take your eyes off people as people. Like you say, you don't know that this person is a person, and what you're saying is hurting her. And how you treating her is hurting her just the same as it would any other person.
And it still makes you want to say, we were children, we were kids. So how do you learn this? Is it just natural, or are you being taught this? So that's just trying to shed light on the whole situation in general. Here's
a concept that I can relay directly to that. Growing up where we come from, we have this thing where we always say a bullet don't have no name on it. So if we're firing at Charlene, the bullet doesn't care what color she is. You know what I mean? The bullet doesn't care what descent she is. The bullet is designed to kill. Simple as that, So bullets don't have names on it. When you shoot, you be careful, who you're shooting at, and you make sure that they're an enemy, if that's the case. So that's just something that, and as like I said, that's just a concept. That's an analogy that a bullet doesn't have a name on it. When you firing your gun, hypothetically, with all these mental bullets, you don't realize that it's going to do damage. It's going to do damage. Like you say, how do we even learn that?
Yeah, how do you learn this stuff? We kids. We going to St. Augustine and look at the fort and eat candy. And you got a problem on herb? I'm like, why? But then when you get older and you think back and you reflect, then you understand why. But it's still, to me, it baffles me as to why. Why is it like this?
Yeah, there's been a lot of violence in Jacksonville lately, too. Certainly from the west side. I think the west side's leading the homicide rate right now.
Yes, they are. I saw that as well.
Which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, you're right. I gotta say, I started out on the west side of Jacksonville in the inner city, the Lackawanna area. My family grew up in that area, which is the McDuff area, Beaver Street, and we ended up moving over to the north side, inner city, same thing. From Lim Turner area back to Pearl Street, to Moncrief, to all these areas that's infamous that you only hear about. And I got to say that the violence has always been in Jacksonville. I think it's moving further and further away from the inner city, and that reaches a crowd that does not want to be reached. That is what stirs the attention.
It's publicized.
It's because it's no longer contained in one area.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now it's an outbreak.
Exactly.
Now it's a plague. When it's contained, it's like we can control it. As long as it stays here, it's hidden, we're fine. But once it starts to spread, we got to do something about this. When it needs to be done about, because it needs to stop. Yeah.
And that's something that in our community we've been crying about that for years. If you check, you do your history. We was just on Google, right? Logan messing around about how you can get facts. Jacksonville in the late 80s, early 90s was the leading place for crime in Florida. So this isn't new. A neighborhood area that the area off Kings Road and that type of area has been on the FBI's top 20, I believe, top 50 worst neighborhoods in the USA. So this is something that is not a secret, and it's just that it's going further and further out to crowds that affects the city as a whole. So if you begin to affect money and it leaves, then the city itself lose revenue. So then you have to contain.
Do you think that's been racially contained?
Was it? Mm-hmm. It was, but now it isn't.
And do you think that's why it's like shocking more people now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Because it's like me and the chick, we used to have this conversation because we grew up from different aspects of life. So what's common knowledge to me is not common knowledge to her. So both of it is common, but it's just different.
That's right.
Different perspective. Because you grew up in a household, your mother, your father, so you can't tell me why I should feel a certain way when you didn't live in this household with me. Mm-hmm. So you don't know how my common knowledge. You don't know how to cook up a pack of noodles and eat a Spam sandwich. So you can't tell me about why I feel the way I feel, because you can't relate to what I'm doing, what I've been through, and still overcome. That's why I'm a lot more appreciative of what I have than versus a person who's always had and they just can't relate. They just take it for granted.
It's funny you mention that, because that's one perspective, your perspective and her perspective. And then what about the perspective of someone who was in the middle, who had a mother and a father, who were ex-drug addicts and grew up in the same hard inner city area as anyone else in Jacksonville, the have-nots, and trying to create a better atmosphere for the next generation, which is their kids. That creates a whole nother element. That's a third element, so it's like you said, I can't even relate to you or her.
Yeah, it's all a variable. So everybody has their own variable.
Yeah.
It's algebraic. It just depends. Everything depends. Everybody's different. Like I said, you can have a wealthy family, come up, best schools, best privileges, and their child could just be a mess up, a screw up. You like, why are you messing up? Like, what, you got all the opportunity in the world to do whatever you want to do, but yet you choose to rebel. And a person that would kill for this opportunity would love that, and you just take it for granted. So it's just a variable. I think it just depends on the person. Mm-hmm. Everything to me, it depends on just the specific person, because you never know. Or like I said, you grow up in a bad household, and that child could be a scholar and go off to college and be something great when his parents never did anything for him. So it's a variable. I think it's personal responsibility. That's what I think people don't accept now. Personal responsibility. Be responsible for yourself, your own actions. Because at the end of the day, it's on you. You have a choice. You can let your environment, blame it on the environment, or you could do something about it, or be who you want to be and just get caught up.
I think the key is just understanding the different perspectives that we all have, like being able to break it down, right? Because like knowing where you guys may have come from, or if someone's like coming from like a lower income home, like someone who's from like a more wealthier income home, is like being able to like have that perspective and like at least have an understanding of it, right? Like because like someone who like may have grown up with privilege, like even me, right? Like I'm a white guy and I grew up from like an upper middle class home on the west side, so I don't know what it's like to like live in poverty, but I need to like at least understand, like I can never know what it's like to grow up in that kind of experience, but you need to understand like what someone who like did grow up in that experience, like how it might affect them and like how they might view the world.
That's very good, and I gotta piggyback off that and say that works both ways. We tend to blame people as black or white, and we say he was privileged, she was privileged. Is that a fault, or are you upset because your forerunners before you did not create that same opportunity. Are you saying you choose to stay down? Are you saying that if you have kids, you would throw away all your success and move into the ghetto so they could say, "Oh, you growing up the way you should"? No, that's not the way you should grow up. Your parents did the right thing. Anyone's parents who did create opportunity for their kids to succeed is doing the right thing. And I also want to add that another stigma that we tend to add to, especially as black or white, we tend to have these things with interracial relationships. Not just interracial relationships as far as intimacy, but interracial relationships as far as friends. We get on a black guy that grows up and he's only been in an upper middle class white neighborhood and say he's talking white. Oh, he's dating white women. What does he know? What do you mean? I don't understand that.
Yeah, that's his common knowledge.
Exactly. So you blaming him, or
that's not his fault?
That's not his fault.
That's what he like.
That's just what it is.
Our bottom line, we're all human. We're all God's children. We should love each other, point blank, period. But in reality, it's not like that.
No.
So it's just about just finding the common ground and just at least respect each other. You know, even if you don't like a person, at least have the respect for them. No matter the background. That for me, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and like harking on someone who actually did, like, say, like a young, like, African American male who did, like, grow up with privilege. It's like certainly, like, by calling him, like, white or saying, like, he's acting white, it's kind of like a way of still, like, limiting and, like, kind of roasting him.
Don't just say he's selling out. How did he sell out? Because he went to school and you chose to skip school now? That's selling out. Well, call me a sellout because I went to class.
Exactly.
That's just because I wanted to graduate.
Exactly.
Am I wrong for that?
Prime name, and from more so our era in which we grew up. You said you were 21.
I'm 22.
22. How old are you?
I just turned 20.
Just turned 20. Okay, you've heard the name Brian Gumble.
Yeah.
You know what he means, what that name means
Yeah.
in the black community.
The Dave Chappelle skit.
Right.
Yeah.
But to anyone, and believe it or not, if I could ask Dave Chappelle, we could ask him, I bet you that is just a skit. Same way as Wayne Brady, I bet you he feels different. If you look at a show like Real Sports, there's nothing sellout about it. He supports the community. He is just a straight up and down right or wrong guy that happens to come from a upper class area, and the way he's heard speech, and the people that he has grown up around is just the people that he's grown up around. But he is still a guy that sees right or wrong or black and white if you take the time to actually view his show. Instead of saying he talk a certain way, or I remember that guy back in the 90s and he sounded a certain way, so he had to be a sellout. When that's not the case. You have to know a person and what they stand for. That's just it. That's just
And that
period.
goes back, they need love. Like, why are you so adamant about hurting this man's name because he's successful? Like, you could have the same.
Yeah.
This is America.
Yeah.
If you want it, you can have it.
Yeah.
Just try. You can't get it watching reality TV shows, though, saying, I can do better than them.
Yeah.
You got to focus. We all have personal responsibility. We all have a choice. Choose yours.